All right, Thunder Bucks. Chet Holmgren struggled a little bit with Robin Lopez's physicality. You could tell Robin was going out of his way to just shove him under the basket and shove him out of position on box outs and jam him on screens and do everything in his power to make him feel uncomfortable. And you could tell Chet was getting a little frustrated and a little fatigued in particular. But I don't think that's going to be an issue in the big picture because Chet also had a good game in this game overall, I thought. But I thought that was an example of some of the struggles he'll have in his first season just by being thin, which is something that is not unique to him. There are a lot of thin big men in the NBA, but that's something he'll run into. I thought you saw some of his defensive upside against Damian Lillard. We all saw the clip on social media of Dame coming off of, against a switch and hitting that hard step back to his right and Chet blocking him. But there were also a couple possessions in that first quarter where Chet really bothered Dame on pull-up jump shots and pick and roll just by having his length up to contest. There was one in particular at the top of the key where Dame changed his release a little bit and shot it higher and ended up leaving it short in a large part because Chet got a good contest. And if you look at the replay, Chet didn't even come out that far. He didn't even come out above the level of the screen. And that's the unique thing with his physical tools, with how long he can be. He can just cause problems without having to go all the way out, which is a real weapon. Josh Giddey had a nice game. He had 19 points on 12 shots. Generated a lot of good closeout opportunities with skip passes. That's his unique talent, right? He's big, and he can see over the floor, and he sees the floor well. So he can make those skip passes in a way a lot of smaller players can't. He's been an important connective piece for them over the course of the last couple of seasons. He's at 1.36 points per pick and roll and 1.67 points per ISO in preseason. Nice game from Josh Giddey. Giannis just obliterated the Thunder front line when he was out there. It was actually kind of funny. There were several possessions where he was posting up Jalen Williams, and it honestly looked like a man amongst boys. Like, I don't know if that phrase gets used all the time, but this was like the literal version of that. There was a play where like he posted up Jalen Williams on the left block and like spun baseline and just dunked over Chet Holmgren. Like Giannis is in prime shape, obviously. Damian Lillard, though, a little out of shape, in my opinion. He left a lot of jump shots short on the front of the rim in this game. He just seems like he's just not quite in that midseason groove yet. He's just 3 for 16 on jump shots in preseason. That's his best skill as an NBA player, right? So obviously he's going to make those shots. I wouldn't overreact to it. To me, it's more important that he gets guarded like Dame, and he still very much is getting guarded like Dame. There was a stretch in the early second quarter where Dame was out there without Giannis and it was all reserves with him. And in that lineup, like the Thunder were just double teaming him whenever he had the basketball. And there wasn't enough skill on the floor around him to make them pay. But like teams are still guarding Dame like Dame. And that will, obviously, to win the title, they're going to need Dame to make shots, which by the way, I believe he will make shots. But in the big picture, especially in the early part of the regular season while Dame's playing his way into shape, it's more important that he's guarded like he's Damian Lillard, and he is very much still being guarded like Damian Lillard. And he did end up coming out for the start of the second half and playing an extra shift there in the third quarter, and he had a driving left-handed layup, and he hit a pull-up jump shot in pick and roll where he didn't have much separation, and he rose up and knocked it down. It was like just inside the three-point line. So I'm not worried about Dame in the big picture. Last Bucks player I wanted to shout out was Malik Beasley. Got super hot, made 6 threes. Something to keep in mind, because I talked a lot about how I view Beasley more as a bench player in the big picture, and I think Pat Connaughton can start. This is something he's capable of doing, though. Like, he played really, really poorly with the Lakers last year, but he still had 4 games where he hit 6+ threes. Like, when he gets hot, he can get unconsciously hot. And that's just kind of part of the Malik Beasley experience. It comes in waves with him. And I think that's an interesting way for them to approach the rotation, especially when it comes to the Pat Connaughton, Malik Beasley kind of decision-making process. Is like you can go with whichever one of them is hot. You know, I think Pat Connaughton's got a higher floor, but there's no doubt that Malik Beasley has a higher ceiling. And you can kind of make that read as the coach based on which one of them is playing better in that moment. All right, let's move on to the mailbag. First question is from Teddy. You mentioned in the Bucks video that they were a team that were honest with themselves and about their weaknesses, and then they made a move. Are there any other teams in the league that need to do that and make a trade? I know you've mentioned the Cavs, but anyone else? I put down 3 teams. The Bulls, I just think it's amazing that they've been running it back despite basically being a below 500 non-playoff team while being fully healthy last year. With that kind of star talent on the roster that all has trade value. Got like DeMar DeRozan's on an expiring deal and brings real like playmaking and scoring. you have to think that he's valuable to a contending team that can take a chance on him to give them an up, like a potential upside during this season, and then cap space in the big picture, right? And then obviously Zach LaVine is another guy that a lot of teams have been linked to over the years. So it's just kind of weird to me that they've continued to run it back that way. I still think the Bulls end up blowing it up at the deadline, but we'll see. The Miami Heat. You just don't have enough talent. How many times are you going to keep running it back with Jimmy and Bam and Spo? And obviously, I think that group needs to stay, but I wish they'd get more aggressive on the periphery to try to bring in some talent. I'd love to see them go after James Harden, even though it's a risk, just because there is a window here. Jimmy is getting older, right? And you just simply don't have enough talent. So I'd like to see them get aggressive. And then lastly, the Clippers. If they can't be healthy in the playoffs this year again, at a certain point, it's your fault if you keep running it back, right? And maybe it all works out and they win the title this year, and I'm not saying they should do it now, but if they get to the end of the season and someone else has the trophy again and Kawhi or Paul George were unable to finish the season, at what point do you just acknowledge that that's the reality of the predicament with those two as your foundational stars and make a move at that point? Next mailbag question. D'Angelo Russell said that he wants to shift his game into playing like Derek White. If you could give D'Lo an NBA player to study and replicate, who would it be? My answer would be Mike Conley. So I actually think the Derek White comp makes a lot of sense on a couple of levels. Derek White is definitely a better athlete. He's a little more slender, a little quicker, a little bit longer, has longer arms, better shot blocker, things like that. But he's also a very, very smart team defender, and that's something that D'Angelo Russell's capable of being. D'Angelo Russell's big. He actually has a decent amount of size. And so playing passing lanes and switching systems and he actually has been competing a lot in ball screens this year, getting over the top and back pressuring. But in general, just by being in the right spot where you're supposed to be in the scheme while having a decent set of physical tools like he does, you can be an impactful defender. And then on the offensive end of the floor, it's kind of a very similar role in the sense that a lot of times the Celtics, even though they're a Tatum and Brown-led team, they would use Derek White to get the defense in rotation because of his ability to get dribble penetration. And, D'Angelo Russell is just, it's less about dribble penetration with him and more about his ability to methodically work in pick and roll and make the right reads, which generate those closeout opportunities, which is kind of a similar type of impact, right? If you generate a closeout opportunity for an athlete on the wing, that's every bit as good as you slashing by your man, right? It's just who can draw multiple defenders and make the right reads, which is something I think D'Angelo Russell can do at a high level still. I think Derek White is the perfect comp for him, and I'm not surprised at all that he said so. Last mailbag question from Luke. You talk a lot about injury luck and luck in general being necessary for a championship. Do you think that is part of the reason that Pat Riley did not throw the kitchen sink in for Dame? Because he can reasonably convince himself that injury luck had bounced the other way in any of the past 4 years, the Heat would have won the chip. Bam and Dragic in 2020, Harrow and Jimmy in 2022, and Harrow in 23. So, and then there's a second question from Luke. Also, will Hoops Tonight be getting exclusive content on the channel throughout the season or mostly just reposts? I'll answer that in a second. But the gist of it is I tend to think you need both. Yeah, you do need injury luck to win the title. But have you noticed I don't have the Miami Heat listed as a top-tier contender? I don't have them listed there because as of right now, they simply do not have enough talent to go toe-to-toe with the very best teams in the league. They're usually good at exposing the flawed teams that are above them, but every year they do eventually run into a team that just simply brings too much firepower to bear. And so, yeah, you need luck. Yeah, Dame is a particularly risky pick as a guard who's 33 years old or whatever. But at the end of the day, you just simply don't have enough talent right now. So luck isn't even a factor for you because you don't have the firepower. So I think they should be aggressive anyway. And the second part of his question, will Hoops Tonight be getting exclusive content on that channel throughout the season or mostly just reposts? My shows with Colin Cowherd will be on the Volumes feed, but everything else is going to be on the Hoops Tonight channel. Just imagine the way last year went from the standpoint of our content being on the Volumes channel. All of that will just be on the Hoops Tonight channel now. The only thing that's going to be different this year compared to last year is we're using breakout clips. Now, what that means is every day I'm going to do a show like this. This show is going to be right around 40 minutes. Most of them are going to be around the same length, maybe a little shorter during the season, right? That 30, 40, 50-minute clip is actually going to have 4 or 5 topics, right? And what ends up happening is the YouTube thumbnail is limited in how much we can market, and the title is limited in how much we can market. It's why half of you guys think all I talk about is the Warriors and Lakers, even though I talk about every team in the league, right? And so what we're going to do this season is we'll have the full show, but then we're going to do breakout clips for every segment. So if you're a Celtics fan and you only want to listen to the segments that are about the Celtics, all you got to do is go to the YouTube channel and look for a Celtics thumbnail, and it'll be in there somewhere. If you're an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, just go look for that, right? So like when we're doing our game breakdowns during the season, if I cover 5 games on a Thursday morning after a jam-packed Wednesday night slate, it'll be one big show, but there will be, it'll be like Lakers Nuggets for one of them, and it'll be like, Warriors Kings for another one, and there will be individual breakout clips in the channel so you can see. Now, we are going to try to change the marketing so that there's like a very clear distinction between the two. So like the thumbnails for the full shows will look one way, then the breakout clips will look a little different, just so it's easier for you guys to see. But it's going to be the same coverage. It's just going to be parsed out into more videos, just so that people that are from the smaller fan bases can still see their content. And look, I get it. I am a Lakers fan, so I talk a lot of Lakers. They're also the largest fan base in the NBA, so I talk a lot of Lakers. I also talk a lot of Warriors, right? I'm going to talk about a lot of the bigger teams in the league a lot, but I also talk about the rest of the teams. And if you get sick of hearing that stuff, I want to have you guys be able to easily access the content that you're looking for. But we have big plans for that YouTube channel this year. It's going to be more active than we have been in previous years. So just keep an eye on that feed over the course of the season. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. We got one more show this week. We're going to go tomorrow. I think I'm going to do rookies. I think I'm going to go deep dive on like Amen Thompson and Asar Thompson and Chet, who's technically going to be playing his first full season, and Victor Wembanyama, and Brandon Miller is a guy I haven't talked about yet. Scoot Henderson's a guy I haven't talked about yet. So I think I'm going to do rookies tomorrow. And then Monday, we're going to do like kind of a big picture season preview, just talking about some predictions. And then Tuesday night, instant reaction videos to both of the games before we head into the groove. All right, guys, I appreciate you, and I will see you tomorrow.